Fantasy. This is my next urban fantasy coming out. And then I'm also writing a space opera with my friend Nancy Northcott that should come out before the end of the summer. And have a sample chapter if anybody would like one. Let me go ahead and let Darin introduce himself, and we'll go down the line.
I am Darin Kennedy, the bookless wonder, because I ran up here really fast so I wouldn't be late, and I was successful at that. I write contemporary fantasy and sort of paranormal thriller, but most of my stuff is set in the modern day. Some of it tends a little bit more superheroic, and some of it tends a little bit more psychic and stuff like that. And I have most of my short fiction is a little more horror, dark fantasy, and most of my long fiction is a little bit more less dark, I guess. More less dark. Use words, Darin. I'm going to let him talk now.
Hello, I am Declan Finn. I am the, I guess I should start with my best credit first. I am the Dragon Award nominated author for Best Horror. The novel was honored stake last year. I do urban fantasy. I do murder mysteries. Obviously, I've done about 5. 2 were straight murder mysteries. The other 3 were, here's a murder mystery at the start, and then it turns into, you know, try not to get shot. Because
Some more suspense?
Yes. I grew up with Die Hard as a Christmas movie.
Die Hard is a Christmas.
Exactly.
Amen. Yippee-ki-yay. I am the author of about 15 books, 2 of them non-fiction. I stack them in front of me, but you might actually want to see me. And the 2 major novels I've done as murder mysteries have been set at conventions. They are my Convention Killings series. Either that or MurderCon. One is It Was Only on Stun, and the other is Set to Kill. I still have to figure out a title for number 3.
Overloaded.
Burst
of polarity.
That's a good one.
I'm Jack McDevitt, and I write all kinds of different stuff, but as far as mysteries are concerned, I have a couple of characters, Alex Benedict and Chase Colpath. Alex is not really a star, an antiquarian living in the distant future, and he and Chase go out and solve historical mysteries and interstellar mysteries. But no murders involved. There usually aren't anyway. We don't worry about stuff like that. But strange things happen, and they have to go figure out what happened a couple centuries ago.
Jack always makes sure that the flitter crash is almost fatal. Well, let's start with you, Jack. Let me ask you, do you plot out your clues and the resolution of the story before you start to write the book? Do you start writing the book before you and figure out the clues the same way the reader would? What is your process there?
You know, I need 2 things to get started. One is, what is the basic mystery? What is the thing that has gone strange that they do not understand? And then I have to figure out the solution. The solution being something that when I get to it, the reader, it's not something, oh, they had an invisible machine. That's how they managed to pull that off. But I want the reader to be able to say, holy cats, I should have seen that coming.
Right.
And that's what I go for.
What about you, Declan?
I try to work with as few knowledgeable bits of business as I go in, because 1, I don't like to outline. I find it boring. I start outlining, I end up actually writing the novel. I need to know basically the crime scene and who did it, but how we get to that person is something I want to find out along the way. I need to know very few things for the giveaway, and that's usually for, okay, I should go back and put this throughout the book so it's an actual clue instead of just, haha, surprise.
As you know, Bob.
Exactly. While writing,
Bob.
It was Bob. What about you, Darin? How do you do that?
I'll go one step back from this. So my first book that got published is called The Mussorgsky Riddle, and half of it's in the real world and half of it's in the mind of this boy who is quasi-catatonic because something happened in the real world that put him there. And what it is that his older brother's girlfriend is missing. Whether she's dead or not, I won't tell you. But as I started writing the book, the main impetus of it is the dream world part, but I had to make sure that the real world part was in there too. And as it went along, I was like, well, I'm going to make you think it's this person or this person who did whatever has happened, but it's really this person. And then as I got further along, I'm like, no, it's not this person did it. And then as I got further along, so like as I'm writing this book, the person who was at fault, I had about 3 or 4 red herrings and 3 or 4 actual people who became red herrings along the way. So it was a very interesting process to do that first.
Very organic?
It was very organic. I was like, nah, not them. Ooh, what it was them? Nah, not them. And then I was like, oh, I know who it is. And it was very interesting because it was one of the things when you got to the end, like everything I needed was right there. But then I did what everyone has said is like you go back through and you make sure there's sufficient clues to make your red herrings and your actual person.
I have to ask, given the setting is half the mind of an autistic child, was the setting of the murder mystery St. Elsewhere?
No, it was actually pictures at an exhibition by Mussorgsky.
Okay.
There you go.
The
That
exhibition hall.
was one of my next questions is how do you seed red herrings? It sounds like you do it kind of after you've gotten through the book.
I
And
didn't mean to.
have you written other mysteries that then you go back and do that?
Well, mine are a little bit psychic mysteries. So the second one, I knew up front who it had to be that was doing it. The second one's very different from the first. So I was able to. The second one, I was more deliberate with throwing my red herrings. In the first one, my red herrings kind of became red herrings when they were no longer the person who did the crime.
Right. Okay. So the second time you did it deliberately.
The second time was more deliberate. The second time was more of a happy accident that it turned out pretty well.
Jack, do you seed them deliberately, the red herrings?
Uh,
Because you have a lot of red herrings in your Dirk Benedict story.
Yeah, I guess I don't even think in terms of red herrings for that. If I can mislead the reader somewhere, I don't. Of course, but those opportunities tend to show up as you write. You know, it's that first time through the first draft is always kind of dumb. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I need to know what the initial mystery looks like, and I need to know what happened, and then everything sort of comes together naturally after I get started on it. Yeah, it's almost just a lot of fun doing it. It's kind of an exercise in good times,
Yeah.
getting out there. I don't do much violence. In fact, I almost never have any violence in any of these things. But what the sort of thing that happens is you'll have a guy, for example, who Sunset Tuttle, who was a guy who spent his life in this futuristic world looking for life in another world, trying to find aliens somewhere, and they couldn't find any. You know, and people laughed at him. They thought it was amusing. The guy's wasting his life, and he dies. And a few years later, they discover that, yeah, he did find something, but why didn't he say anything? So then the hunt starts.
What do you, and Declan, what about you? Do you find that seeding the red herrings is easier now that you've done one or two, or?
Actually, it's easy to start with because even though, you know, these two were straight up murder mysteries, more or less, I still had a lot of, they're both set at conventions. There's a lot of running around. There's a lot of screaming and yelling. Because,
well, it's a convention, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. The second one is set at a mythical place in Atlanta called RavenCon. You know, that only has about 60,000 people running around. And the red herrings were easy because I had based the background on this on, okay, well, it's a political argument within fandom. So you've got 3 sets of group that all hate each other.
Wow, you just really went from life, didn't you?
No, anything.
The people who like Moffat, the people who don't like Moffat.
Exactly.
And the people who are indifferent to Moffat.
At which point Moffat is strangled with a 6-foot multicolored scarf. But, and but yeah,
I'd probably read that.
It's easy to do. Yeah, but it's easy to do red herrings when it's everybody's got a motive, and in this particular case, I wrote it where everybody's carrying a weapon.
Yeah, that's
Your
nice.
third book. I swear, I thought it was Sonic.
Jack?
Do a title brainstorming thing.
Yeah, right. That would actually
I'm
make
gonna
a
keep
fun
working on
panel.
this
Let's
for you.
kind of brainstorm titles. Jack, who do you think does it right besides you? Who does it best?
Oh, One of the books I loved was Connie Willis's Wagging the Dog, something, what was it?
Say nothing of the dog.
Pardon?
Say nothing of the dog. Something of the dog.
I can't hear you.
To say nothing of the dog.
To say nothing of the dog, that's it. You know, that's, she's great, you know, and.
What is it about her books that you like? What does she do
They're
right?
they're very smooth, very subtle. There's a lot of humor in them. And at least for me, it may be that I'm especially dumb, but I never see it coming. I always, you know, when Connie's writing a mystery, and that's the one that really sticks in my mind, I get completely surprised at the end. But but it falls together. I can see that it makes sense. Why did I see that?
What about you, Declan?
Jeffrey Deaver. I'm not sure if anyone here has read him.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, growing up in my household, after the first 2 or 3 books, it was to Deaver something was to screw over the audience in the last 10 minutes. And it's so far from least likely suspect, it's, no, this person wasn't even a suspect. We thought he was a victim.
What do you think, Darin?
I don't read as much mystery as I do fantasy, so I'm gonna sort of sidestep just a little bit and say,
They're sidestepping the moderator's question.
I'm answering your question, but just in a slightly different genre.
Just kidding.
Neil Gaiman in American Gods gives you an important piece of information, sort of very subtly on page 1 of American Gods.
Oh, yeah.
That about 300 or 400 pages in, you'll be kind of like, no, and then you go back and you're like,
Yes!
Darin, how do you no, you didn't. And then you want like, so yeah. So Neil does it right.
I would agree on that one. And I have not read Connie's, but I'll be looking that one up. Dixie Lyle does a great job with it too. She really writes what are more considered cozy mysteries, but they have a paranormal element. And she weaves it in so subtly, you get to the end and you go, same thing. Wait a minute, wait. And it's not like the reveal on Scooby-Doo where they go, and they pull the mask off and go, it's Mr. Smith. You know, it's more like, wait. Why didn't I see that coming? Yeah.
Well, the reason you don't see it coming on Scooby-Doo is because they pull up a picture and they go, oh my God, it's the answer to the question. But the camera is like back here. And like, well, Fred and Velma, if I could have seen the photograph of that guy standing with that guy, I could have figured it out too. You didn't show me. So grr, Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
They don't play fair.
Yeah.
They don't play fair. They don't give you all the information.
You want Don't Play Fair? What was that? Matlock, where you never get the final clue, and it was off screen at the time, and it's like, that's not a murder, that's not a mystery.
That's an as you know, Bob.
Yes.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Jack?
I was going to say, asking about my favorite for writing mysteries. It's not a science fiction writer at all, but it's Gilbert Chesterton. That was the Father Brown stories, which are the best mystery stories I have ever read. I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan, but Sherlock Holmes is always doing whodunits. With Father Brown, so what the hell happened here? they really are very good example.
Instead of who, it's what is it,
What's
rather
going
than
on,
who
yeah.
done it.
The good example of the kind of thing he does is there's one story I remember where he and his partner are walking through a memorial area, and they're talking about a British general who, during a war 20 years earlier, a British general who was famous for being careful and conservative and cautious with his men's lives, who for some reason in one particular battle, for no apparent reason, charged the hill and got everybody in sight killed. What the hell was he doing? And
What was he thinking?
they never leave the park, but Father Brown figures it out.
Well, for heaven's sake. Oh, that's something I have to read.
What was the title of that one?
Pardon?
What was the title of that one?
I don't remember the title of the story. I'm
You know
sorry.
what? Just read Father Brown.
I
He's
was
worth
gonna
it.
say, I have as well.
Yeah,
I
you
have it.
can.
I've been reading some of them.
Yeah.
Gilbert Chesterton, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Gilbert K.
Well, Declan, we'll go to you next. What do you think the pitfalls are in structuring a mystery? As a writer, one of the hardest things can be figuring out who done it and then concealing it from your reader. So, what do you think one of the hardest things in structuring a mystery is?
Well, 2 problems. One, playing fair. Agatha.
And what do you mean by playing fair?
Well, for example, Agatha Christie was very well known for, aside from breaking all the rules of the Mystery Writers Guild, was waving the answer in front of the audience and making sure you do that before, without letting the audience in on it, is a cute trick. With Rex Stout and his Nero Wolf mysteries.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
those.
he would usually give you the solution before you were ever asked the question. So, yes, you already had the data, but you didn't know what to do with it.
It was just data.
Exactly. Oh God, the problem I had was Set to Kill. I had so many bloody characters running around. Here's an issue I'm not sure that comes up that often. I lost track of a suspect. I forgot he was in the book. Because he was just that colorless.
I
It's
have
like,
to do that sometimes to make a chart.
Louis L'Amour did that in one of his westerns,
Yep.
famously, when a character rides off for help partway through the book.
What about you, Darin?
I would, with the very last part of what you just said, because I wanted to riff off of that.
You
guy
lost
was so
track of a
colorless.
character.
Yeah, guy was so colorless he disappeared.
So he had the guy that was in the book and then disappeared. Whereas the very first person in Mussorgsky who was going to be in it ended up not being a character in the book at all. It was going to be this person's friend. And then I got to the end, I'm like, oh, I never even put that guy in the book. So I had the person that disappeared. I think the thing is you get to the end of the book and you decide, this is vegetable soup, and I want it to be this salty. And you go back and you want to sprinkle just enough salt. If you don't sprinkle quite enough salt, everybody goes, that's not fair, you Scooby-Dooed me, and I don't like you. If you sprinkle too much salt, then people are halfway through the book, oh, it was Old Man Smithers, and I knew it all along. So you want to get it right. It's the Scooby Smithers graph. You have to hit the sweet spot right in the middle. It's the SS factor. Look it up. I made that up. Barney from How I Met Your Mother. It's a thing. The SS
thing. It's
Look
a
it up.
thing.
It's a thing.
Do you, and I'll start with Jack on this one. Do you think it's harder to write mystery? You were saying you read, Chesterton and them, and they're not paranormal mysteries,
Right.
and they're not set in the future, and they're not, they're just straight mysteries. Do you think it's harder to write with fantasy or futuristic elements rather than a straight mystery set in present day?
No,
What makes it easier for you?
I don't know if it's, well,
Or just
I
natural, I
can't
guess.
really answer whether it's easier because I've never written I don't think I've ever written anything that was not science fictional, or a little bit of fantasy. But the same rules seem to apply. You're upfront with the reader, let the reader see what's going on. Put something in there where later on the reader can say, I guess I missed the vital clue, but it's the same game.
Well, that actually begs the question, then, what made you decide to do it in the future as opposed to writing in the common time?
Because the ideas I had for the stuff that I wanted to write, had not, as far as I knew, had not been done before. An interstellar vessel at a time when we've got interstellar travel all over the place. It comes back from, it's been out there somewhere. And what happens is some sort of undercover goes on. The government quiets everything down. The guys who are on board don't say anything. They disappear. They kind of go on with their lives. And Alex Benedict's uncle, Gabriel, is an historian, and he's looking into it. And he's on a ship that disappears. So now he gets involved in it that way. And it's just.
It would be hard to do that in modern time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, what did they see out there that's threatening or whatever it is that's going on that they have to feel they have to keep a secret? Or why did they? You got an interstellar where it went out to watch a collision between a star and a black hole, and they went out and they watched it, and the sun blew up and everything went up, and they announced, okay, we'll return imminent, we'll be back in a few days or whatever, and they're not heard from again. And they send out a rescue mission, and when the rescue mission gets out there, they find the ship.
But nobody on it.
But nobody's on it. No, you know that.
Oh, yes.
You know the history. There's nobody there. The pressure suits are still there, so they didn't leave the ship. There are no aliens anywhere in the area, and there's no place they could have gotten off because the planets are all, there's no sun. So what happened?
And that is not something you could do in the present day.
Yeah, it's just a whole different game.
Mhm. Now, Declan, yours are set in the present day at a con, so there's a fantasy element in the sense of the con, but is there any other fantasy element that plays into it that's more like what we would generally call woo-woo? But that would be the technical term.
I try to keep it just on this side of strange, but
Wait. You're doing this at RavenCon? This side of strange? That's a fine line to walk, son.
I've had to pee between Frog Thor and Flaming Carrot. There is literally nothing stranger than RavenCon. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
You're Frog Thor and you're Flaming Carrot.
Great.
But-
I'm just going to do my business and go.
Business and go.
But, oh, good Lord, that's just some of the stuff. It's like, okay, take notes on this. This actually happened. You know, it's like, you know, things that go on at some cons. It's like, you know, yes, a woman walking around topless, except she's wearing a bumper sticker right here. It's like, what? But no. Yeah, it's like, tempted to read the bumper sticker, but don't. Just keep moving. But no, one of the characters I have who is a regular and happened by accident, for the record. I've been writing since I was a teenager, and one of my family members suggested, you know, it was an offhand comment for my main character's CV, you know, having run into Middle-earth's most wanted elven assassin. It's like, okay, fine, I'm going to use that character once. It was only on stun. Damn son of a bit of gun would not stay in one book, so he wound up in this one too, and he thinks he's an elf.
Did
And
you ever reveal whether he or she is not an elf?
no, that's one of the things I try to keep on this side of strange, so it's
Okay.
like, wait, is he? And move on.
What about you, Darin?
Just to make sure that I understand what
Well,
I'm answering.
paranormal elements are often harder to deal with because you're not only doing the mystery, you're dealing with paranormal or scientific or, you know, futuristic elements. Do you think that's harder than writing a regular mystery, or do you think it's more challenging and fun than writing a regular mystery, or it's just no other way for you to do it?
You know, I think that we all have our. I think everything is a little bit of a mystery. You know, how are they going to get together? You know, how is Luke going to save the universe from Darth Vader? I mean, everything's got a little bit of a let's set up the problem and then get to the end of it by the end. So I think we all I think there's a lot of genre bleed. So sort of dancing around your question for a second. I guess
you are.
I guess the real answer for me would be I tend to write things that have a fantastical bent, and so like Masorti, I wanted to write a book about pictures at an exhibition. It ended up being a mystery of a missing person, but it's because I needed there to be a mystery to have a real world story so I could tell the story of pictures at an exhibition, which is what I really wanted to do. So
You came at it from the back way.
that series this was really I want to have a story that has a theme, and then you make the story up to go. It's the complete backdoor way to write a book. So
Was that hard? Because you'd written other books before that.
it
so
was simultaneously hard and easy. Those three books literally wrote themselves.
That's the most fun.
When you're watching the ballet from Tchaikovsky for your third book, and the three puppets from the ballet in the second book are literally there in someone's in a production, you're like, this stuff is writing itself. It's amazing. I can tell you stories.
That's a good sign.
It's like sometimes you're Sisyphus and you're having to push the rock uphill, but every once in a while the rock's just rolling down and you're like,
Get on and ride!
Get on that rock and run.
Better be on the rock than under it.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, what was your easiest book to write besides this?
I think what happens every single time I write a book is I get about 60 to 70% in, and then I call it my characters are trapped in the front yard. Because when I wrote Pawn's Gambit, the very first thing I wrote, I had everybody in the front yard of this house, and the bad guys attacked, and I'm like, I don't know what happens next. And then I was stuck for a few months, and then I think about it, and then I figure out what happens, and then I write the rest. So I always have it's easy, it's hard, stop for a while, think about it, eat lots of nachos, write rest of the book, send it to people. That's, so, none of them have been easy and none of them have been hard.
So you just, if you get stuck, you pause.
I go on pause, yes.
I either kill somebody or blow something up. What about you,
Yeah.
Declan?
No, kill something or blow something up
Or look.
works.
No, actually not, I never use that as a plot device to move the book forward. It always has to be something that does move the book forward, but I don't ever use it with where I'm stuck. I blow something up or kill somebody.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
other people may do that, but I don't.
Sometimes it's just easier when it's like, wow, I'm stuck here. Pause. Can I make this more insane?
Yes.
Why, yes, I can. You know?
I'm a believer that there's really nothing that a proper application of C4 can't cure.
Military
So-
engineer's credo, if I understand you.
And I subscribe to Jim Butcher's theory of, at any point in the story where you think it's getting a little bit boring, how can I make my main character's life more difficult or painful? And then I do that.
Well, weren't we just going back to Mickey Spillane? You know, when the plot gets slow, send him in through the door with a gun.
Very true. Now, Jack, it sounds to me like you have a different process. What is your process?
When I get stuck,
Uh-huh.
go to a con.
Seriously?
If there's one available, yeah. Yeah, I try to break off for a while. It's not something that normally happens to me, and when I do workshops and things, I always kind of lie to writers, the prospective writers, and I tell them that getting stuck in a place is always in your head. You just have to relax and get on with the job and stop whining about it. But I'm a whiner from way back. And,
You have skills?
Basically, I just have to find something else to do for a while and give my mind a chance to regroup a little bit.
A lot of times I have 2 or 3 books going at the same time, and so if I get stuck really in quantum quagmire, I'll switch to another completely different book and write something else for a little bit, and that usually unsticks the gears, or I blow something up. It actually leads to a great question is, regardless of whether it's a mystery or anything else, what is your writing process? Are you a plotter, or are you a pantser, or are you...
Other than I need to know where the book's going to end. And I find a lot of times I think I know where the book's going to start, and then I find myself changing that. But if the kinds of books I write, I have to know what the conclusion is, because I have to know basically. Yeah, I've got another series as well, they're not really mysteries exactly, but also with those I've got to have a sense of what the conclusion, what is the, which way is this thing headed. And
I just have to ask one of those personal questions that you got. The new book, the Thunderbird book,
yeah.
did you know that in before you started?
No, as a matter of fact, I wrote it a different way originally.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I got a lot of criticism for the way it ended.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But
I
I
was
thought
fascinated with it.
he did exactly what he would have done to protect the reputation of the Sioux.
Yeah. Okay, so no spoilers. I won't give it any more. So you start with the end. I know I'm going to San Diego, and then you figure out how to get from wherever your character is to San Diego.
Yeah. Actually, somebody disappeared off the train to San Diego, and the train never stopped. And I got to know what happened. That's okay.
That's the end. Okay, all right. What about you, Declan? Do you know the end before you start, or do you know the start before the end, or?
Oh, I usually have a general sense of how the end is going to look.
Well, you said earlier that you don't outline because it's boring.
Correct.
So you sort of fly by the seat of your pants then?
Oh, definitely. Most of what I need to do for a book is, okay, I know where the setting is going to be, I know the general events, and I spend more time developing the characters. It's like, before I wrote, it was only on Stun. I did at least 1,000 to 3,000 words on biography of the main character. So it's like, okay, I have now wound up my little toy, I'm going to let him wreak havoc. And that's pretty much what happened.
I know a lot of people who do that. A lot of authors will outline the characters before they even start writing. I don't do that, but do you? What do you do? What's your process?
I tried to do note cards one time, and I looked at them and I put them in the trash can. And then I tried to make character sheets for everybody, and I filled out 2 or 3, and they ignored them completely. So in the plotter or pantser thing, I always tell people I'm a plantser, because I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I don't sit and plot everything out. The interesting thing for me so far, Pawn's Gambit's a little bit different. That's my chess superhero books, and that was more of a I kind of said by the end of this I wanted them to be at this far along in the story toward the big final battle. But like with Mussorgsky, Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky, literally some guy in Russia 150 years ago plotted for me. He said, so like I mean these things, when I say they follow either the straight thing of the symphony or they follow what happens in the ballet, and I just utilize that as my storytelling tool to build this mystery into the thing. I'm not lying. It's like it literally wrote itself, and it was really fun to do, to weave like 3 different ballets together, or 5, or whatever, and so someone plotted for me in a completely different format 150 years ago, and I want to high five them, but they're dead.
Yeah. It's a little challenging.
A little challenging. I'll make it over there and go lay flowers in their grave at some point and say, thanks, guys.
Dudes, you rock.
You rock.
What about some questions from the audience? What do y'all want to talk about today? Come on in, join us.
Actually, I was looking for somebody.
Are they
You
here?
found somebody. That's all right.
Is it? Do anybody have a
What
clue?
book is that? You found someone. What is that from? I'm trying to remember. Because I'm looking for
It
someone.
was just being a generalized ass. I don't know.
Oh, well, that's actually from a book. He goes,
If I was quoting, it was accidental.
he goes, I would say that you found someone. That's from one of the books. I can't remember what it is.
Okay, questions? Come on, people.
It's Yoda.
You're right.
That's who it
Yes,
is.
yes.
Found someone.
Found someone you have.
Well, most excellent.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, Jack, what's your favorite book of your own favorite book? The ones you've written.
That's like asking me which is my,
Your favorite
which of my
child?
kids is, yeah. I'm sorry about the cliche, but, yeah, I don't know. Probably the first one, the Hercules text, because that was my first novel. It's like, you know, the first story, the first sale is always the biggest thing, I think, in a writer's career. But, yeah.
And I have a friend who says her favorite book is the one she just finished. Her first one and the one she just finished because it's done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to worry about it anymore. What about you, Declan?
I'm close to that, but not quite. I think my favorite book is probably Set to Kill right now because it was just so easy to write, so quick to get through, and it was just wonderfully insane. And
The ones that write themselves are fun.
oh yes, and I was laughing I was laughing through it, not as much as some of the people who have given me reviews with. I fell off the chair a few times, but no, it was just that much. It was just that joyous to go through.
What about you, dear? Pawn's Gambit?
I'm going to be 100% honest with y'all. I wish, because Pawn's Gambit was the book I wanted to write when I was like 14 years old, and I finally wrote it in my 30s and was finally published in my 40s. And so that's been my lifelong dream. That's why I'm a writer. But I love the Mussorgsky riddle so much, and my publisher got an audiobook, and they found the most wonderful reader, and I listened to it. She did a really good job.
It is funny when you've written what we writers section call the book of your heart, and then you have another series that you think nothing could have topped writing the book of your heart, and then you write something and you go, damn, I wrote that.
When you hear somebody really talented read back something you wrote, and they can do all the accents right, and they get what you wrote, and they say it the right way at the right time.
That's got to be magical.
It's
Yeah.
magic.
Have any of
I
you
get a
all,
little emotional, sorry.
have you ever heard Jim Dale read the Harry Potter books?
No.
Oh, if any of you get a chance to even hear a snippet of it on Audible, Jim Dale reads all the Harry Potter books, and he does all the voices. He does Dobby, and he does McGonagall, and he does everybody, and it is truly magical. It makes them wonderful. What's a question you would have for the other panelists about getting a clue in writing mystery? Or what makes a great mystery?
She goes, you be the moderator for a minute.
That's right.
Don't let her fool you.
It's called passing the buck.
Well,
I'll let you.
how do we all? Well, I've heard a lot lately. Disparaging words about, of all things, which strikes me as bizarre, prologues. Prologues aren't interesting, or you shouldn't use them, or you should go straight to chapter 1, or something. Anyone else have opinions on that? Because I personally think, prologues are evil. That's ridiculous.
The reason I think it's about the prologues is that since it has now been established that prologues are bad, I don't want, and let's say you're trying to get an agent, but it's become the common thing that nobody reads vampire fiction, or that prologues are dead, or that Twilight is not good, or whatever. You don't want them to open up the file and have the word prologue, and they go, I don't accept prologues because I have subsumed the information that prologues are bad, and delete me before they read the first sentence. So I would say I wouldn't do prologues now, not because I necessarily believe they are evil, but because everybody else does, and I don't want to be dismissed doing something. That being said, a lot of times what they say the problem with a prologue is that it's really your first chapter, and like if you're doing a prologue, it needs to be something very distinct and something that needs to be a prologue, but most of the time it's just the first chapter. And more importantly, most of the time you could probably do what this gentleman does and grab all that information and actually just mix it better into your story in the first place. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think, well, I certainly agree with you that a prologue is like any other writing. It's a tool, and is it good or bad? It depends on whether you screw it up or not. But any writer will tell you that it's absolutely essential with a novel. So I'm assuming we're talking about novels here, but the same thing's effectively true of short stories. Years ago, I used to attend the Sycamore Hill Writers Workshop in Raleigh, and I remember we talked a lot about starting a book, starting a piece of fiction, and the rule there was you never start with a weather report. You don't break people in with it, because a lot of writers think, people who are trying to write at the beginning will think that, okay, but I've got to pass off information. I have to introduce my characters. I got to tell them this, that, whatever. That's crazy. A prologue gets you there. A prologue allows you, for example, especially I know they work really well for me, because I got most of my mysteries are mysteries where a lot of the action, the basic part of the action started maybe 50, 60, 100 years earlier. And I can take that part of the action, that becomes the prologue. The prologue is where when I mentioned that starship earlier, it's where the starship goes out and they watch the collision, they watch this and that, and they say, okay, let's go home, and that's the end of the prologue. And now it's 40 years later or whatever, and they've never been found again. And Alex Benedict says, we really ought to maybe try to figure out what the hell could have happened to them. So it works really well that way. Yes, sir.
As far as the ones who say you can't use prologues, or the ones that declare war on adverbs or whatever, my analogy to that has always been finding someone who's a painter and saying, hey, you know what? You can't use green. I mean, you use what works at the time and what works for you.
It's ironic that you mentioned that, because we were talking about the mistakes that new writers make earlier, how to make sure that your manuscript doesn't get published. And I made it a point of bringing up adverbs. Suddenly I feel very regretful. It's another story.
What makes writing a mystery different from writing other genres?
That's kind of what I was saying before. I think all the genres, like a good mystery is going to have elements of romance and probably a little bit of horror whenever. So I think that a lot of them crisscross each other. And what is the predominant, what is the predominant theme, I guess. What makes it different? I think it's what is the focus on.
Well, for instance, I'm a member of Romance Writers of America. If it's a romance, it has to have either a happily ever after or a happily ever after for now.
HFN.
Yes. So that's the only thing that makes it a romance, right? So Nicholas Sparks doesn't write romance because it's almost never happily ever after it ends. Somebody's dead, right?
I don't know.
Now,
I've never read it.
it's romantic, but it's not romance, right? So you can have something with romantic elements to it, but if it doesn't have a happily ever after ending, wow, I can't talk today. It is not technically a romance, right? You can have love interests, like in all the Jack Reacher books. He has various encounters and sexual adventures and so forth and so on. But there is no way those would never be considered romance, because he's in love him and leave him. Jim Butcher has an ongoing sort of on again, off again, at least in the first 4 or 5 books.
Karen Murphy.
Yeah, and that you still wouldn't call that a romance, but it does have romantic elements. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot of genre bending in there. But mystery is always, something has happened, it's like Jack said earlier, something has happened. What led to it to make that the ending, the adventure, where did the ship go?
And then we live in a world where you have to decide, am I a mystery, am I a thriller, am I a suspense, and then do I put a romantic or a dark fantasy modifier in front of this mystery, thriller, or suspense? And when the mystery is a lot more of, there's a dead body, and by the end we're going to tell
Figure
you
out who killed
that dead body.
Yeah.
But thriller versus suspense is like, am I the main character and is somebody trying to kill me the whole time, or am I the main character and I'm trying to make sure that a bomb doesn't blow up and kill everybody by the end? But you can really, the fine gradations between this are, because there is a mystery as to who set the bomb, or there is a mystery as to who's chasing us in the thriller. And so there's a lot of cross-pollination there.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges is that a lot of those specific genre categories were created when every single one of us were dependent on a traditional publisher. Because every traditional publisher wanted to know, where do we shelve it in the bookstore? Well, one of my stories is that he believes in magic. I mean, he's a mage. She doesn't believe in magic. She works with aliens. He doesn't believe they exist. They're both wrong. Where do you shelve that? Because it is a murder mystery. It is a suspense. It's a thriller. But where do you shelve it? And that's what she said to me when I sent it to her. She said, I love the book. I love everything about it. She said, I don't know where to put it, so I can't buy it.
J.D. Robbins' In-Depth series.
Exactly.
It's
where do you put it?
Sci-fi and mystery and
But they
romance
file it in
and
mystery.
adventure.
And they never file it.
Depends where you are. I've seen it in public libraries and romance.
Because she writes all the Nora Roberts books, and so they file it there. But most bookstores put it, Barnes & Noble, it's always a mystery. And that's fascinating to me. So to your question, how do you know it's a mystery is,
No,
Yeah.
it's more like what makes it different.
what makes it different? In terms of,
There's a
You have to
problem.
write it, really.
In one version of, if it's a straight up murder mystery like this, it's a puzzle. You know, granted, the way I do it, it's a puzzle where the puzzle pieces are trying to kill you. But it is a puzzle, and you have to put the pieces together. Hey, as you pointed out, everything has elements of mystery in it. Even Die Hard, if you go through the entire movie, a lot of it's almost written like a mystery, where you have clues sprinkled throughout the entire first half of the film with, okay, what do bank robbers need C4 for if they're not blowing the vault? Answer, everyone's seen the movie, right?
Yeah.
Oh, watch the movie.
Really?
Please watch the movie.
Bruce Willis had hair, I swear.
Yeah, he did. He really did.
It's a heist movie disguised as an action thriller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
well, it's a Christmas movie.
It is a
It's
Christmas
a
But
Christmas
it's a
movie.
thriller because somebody's after Bruce Willis. It's a suspense because something's going to get blown up at the end. It's a mystery because you don't know who did it. There's a little bit of romance because Bruce Willis trying to get back with his ex-wife. There's all kinds of stuff. There are no fantasy elements there. Bruce Willis cannot cast a spell. Dobby does not appear in Die Hard.
There are no dragons? Oh.
It's probably the best single action movie ever written. It still holds up remarkably well, however
Oh,
many
yeah.
decades later we are now.
Oh, yeah.
Nearly 30.
Yeah.
It's nearly 30 years old.
Jack, how would you answer that question?
'Cause I'm-
Well, I couldn't help thinking that, that there's always a tendency in a panel to try to set off various categories. And I think we're maybe, we're headed in that direction, and then we just come back a little bit, which I think we should. Because there is, first of all, in any kind of piece of fiction, you have to have something that drives the storyline. You have to have something that keeps the reader writing. It keeps the reader involved. And mysteries are great at that. So is romance. Is he going to get the girl? Is she walking off? Or what? But to have that really helps. And there's that Father Brown story where the police know that a guy has been threatened, and they put a few cops around the place where he lives, and they're there all night long. And in the morning, he's dead. He's been knifed, I believe, and nobody went and ran out of the house.
Locked door mystery.
Locked door mystery, and there you go. you are not going to put that thing down until you find out how it was done. So, but at the same time, you can have these other elements get involved as well. If you can put a number of elements inside, you shouldn't try to. It seems to me, it's falsely as if you go out of your way to narrow the scope. And let me just make it a thriller. And I could do a great mystery here too, but I'm not going to. This is a thriller. That's dumb. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So
Because we want as many
there's
of
gotta
the
be some
readers
skill
as
of
we
it.
can get.
Sure.
In fact, if you wanted to see somebody who balances both thriller and mystery very well, an author named James Rollins, who he was writing before Dan Brown, is smarter than Dan Brown, which isn't hard, I know, but has all sorts of has a historical mystery element, has techno-thriller element, has spy thriller element, and it's, kind of like Indiana Jones. Something goes haywire every 50 pages.
Well, and you have
just
to say
keep
that
going.
about Dan Brown too, is every chapter ends on a hook that you, whether you like his writing or not, you turn that page and find out what happened next.
He lost me in the prologue.
Patterson does that too.
Yeah, Patterson does it too, and a lot of people love Jim, but but he hooks you, he pulls you in that next chapter because you got to find out what happened. And so I think you're right, Jack. That's one of those things that we're not going to ignore the other elements in storytelling just to be purist. But it's still a great question because it's always about finding and uncovering and all that sort of thing. When you can even vaguely stick the label of mystery on it. It has to be about figuring out what happened either in space 40 years ago when the Polaris disappears, or what happened to the pond? To the pond in Pond's Prophecy.
I still think one of the best examples of that. I think J.K. Rowling did a great job in the fourth Harry Potter book with telling you exactly what was going to happen at the end of the book in the first chapter of the book, and you get there and it's like poof, they're in a graveyard. You're like, oh,
That's what happened.
oh, that was and so there's a little bit of mystery there. Love that stuff.
We've got time for one more question if anybody has one. Come on. Nobody? Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Where can these fine people find all of you this weekend if they want to ask you questions or purchase your books or whatever?
Well, I'm going to be at a signing in the next 10 minutes. I've got a Truth and History panel at 10, a Fantasy of the Modern City panel in room 8, where I'm moderating, and I'll be in the Paranormal Romance panel tomorrow.
With me? What about you, Jack? What about you, Jack? I know you've got a signing, a reading is this afternoon?
The reading already passed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's over.
So go back in time, listen to that.
Happily over and done with, yeah. I'll be tomorrow. I have a panel, 1 o'clock, hard science versus science fiction at 1 o'clock tomorrow, and I'll be happy to, sign any books or anything like that. I also, by the way, have here some trading cards. If anybody would like a trading card,
Excellent.
I understand they are now. They've got one of these cards too with H.G. Wells on it, so I'm traveling in pretty good company for the day. Anybody would like one, they're there for you.
Darin, where can we find you?
I've got a 6 p.m. panel on exposition, 7 p.m. tonight in room G. We're doing the creativity and mental health. These have been very powerful at the last few conventions that we've done them at. And so I'm hoping that this one is well attended, but if you want to come and hear a little bit of a different slant on some things, if you're interested in mad scientist kind of stuff, like I'll take off my author hat and put on my doctor hat. We're doing that at 11 p.m. tonight. I have a reading tomorrow at 2, and then if you're interested in talking to me or looking at any of my books, I'm in the far back right corner of the dealer's room. I'd love to say hi.
I'll be on several panels this afternoon and several more tomorrow, and at Con Carolinas if anybody's going there.
Con Carolina is a great convention in Charlotte
Yes.
in about a month and a half.
Yeah, and I will be teaching my body disposal workshop at that one as well. I taught it last night from 10 to midnight. What?
I couldn't make that one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It was 10 to midnight, and I had a pretty decent crowd considering I was opposite Misty and Larry.
Oh, as far as future conventions goes, I will be at both LibertyCon and RavenCon down in Atlanta.
So
May I make a final comment?
Absolutely, please.
I don't think, if you get a good idea for a mystery, there is nothing that is easier and more fun to write than a good mystery. They virtually write themselves once you
Once
know
you
where
get
you're
started.
going.
Once you get started.
Thank you,
Agreed.
everybody.
Thank you, Jeanne.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure.
Very nice. It's good.
Declan, good to see you
Thank
again.
you.
Same here.